All right. Hi, everybody. I'm so excited today to be interviewing Joanne King. She is the author of Too Good to Go, Too Bad to Stay, 5 Steps to Freeing and Finding Freedom from a Toxic Relationship. So what all does that mean, Joanne? That's a long book title. Can you unravel that a little bit for us and tell us a little bit about your book? What does it mean? And how has it kind of led you to where you are today?
Well, first, I'd like to just say aloha and welcome.
Aloha.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me as your guest. My book, Too Good to Go, Too Bad to Stay, is about being in a relationship that today we might call it toxic. Sometimes the relationship is so good, and then sometimes it's so bad. And these type of relationships are so subtle. And when you're in a toxic relationship, you might not even realize you're in that relationship.
That's good. So how might one find out if they are in a toxic relationship or not? Maybe they think that this level of, BS that I'm dealing with is everybody's level of BS. Like, is there like a barometer that says, okay, it's a little too much, it's time to leave?
Well, there are signs. There are many, many signs when you're in a toxic relationship. And I think one of the biggest ones that I experienced was what I call walking on eggshells. And walking on eggshells is when you don't want to rock the boat. So everything in your house, everything in the relationship has to be perfect. Mm-hmm. Because if it's not perfect and you set him off, then it's trouble. So that to me is a really big sign. Another one is their behavior may resemble Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Yes.
I don't know if you're familiar with that term.
Yes.
But one day they're charming, they're loving, they're like the best spouse ever. And the next day they're cruel, insensitive, berating you. And you can't understand, you can't comprehend this behavior because it's not normal. Mm-hmm. It's very, very difficult. A lot of people feel a sense of worthlessness because after time, this beating you down all the time, it wears away on your self-esteem. And this is a very slow, insidious process. This isn't something that happens immediately. It could take years. For me, I was married and I stayed in it for 24 years because I had children and I didn't want to leave. And my religious upbringing told me, no, you're married till death do you part, right?
Yes.
So I was in it. I was in it for the long haul and I stayed. And finally, one day, I want to say I woke up. Everything came to a head. And it started when I started coming to Hawaii. I owned a business in Chicago, and so I bought some investment property in Hawaii, and then I started coming more frequently. And as I got away from him, I thought, oh my gosh, like life is really fun and good. So that was kind of my wake-up call, like, whoa, I don't have to stay like that. So yeah, and it's so personal for everyone to know when to leave. It's a very personal journey, and that's what I do is I help women to identify what it is they want. Do they want to stay or do they want to go? And that's really the crux of Too Good to Go, Too Bad to Stay.
Oh, that's so good. I know in my personal life, I've had a lot of, I'll leave when ... right? Like when he hits me, or I'll leave when he yells at me again, or when he slams the door again, or like so many times, I can't even count how many times in my first marriage, I would say those words in my head. Oh, I'm going to leave him when, and you plot and you have kind of this sick, dysfunctional thing going on in your head. And you think everybody's like that all marriages are like that. So I love that you've kind of drawn that line for us and said, when you feel like you're walking on eggshells, when you feel like if anything, if the house is messy, then he's going to yell at you, or the dishes aren't done. Or one of the podcasts that I did earlier today, we were talking about, silly little things that we would, all of a sudden just be fearful of, because our partner would come in and start yelling and screaming, and that's not normal, right?
So painful, so painful.
Yeah. So talk about maybe some signs let's talk about maybe more borderline stuff. So maybe the I don't want to go portion of your book, right? Too good to leave. What is if we're looking at the BS barometer again, when is it okay to stay? And it's just, that's what relationships are.
So, I'm actually a psychotherapist, and a lot of times what I want to say is that these people, these men, are on a spectrum of narcissism, right? Okay. There's narcissistic personality disorder. So I don't want to say that just because he has a couple traits, he's diagnosed as narcissistic personality disorder. No, I want to say there's a spectrum from high to low. And the person can be, at the low end. If they're at the very low end of the disorder, then, and they want to change. That's the important thing. Do they recognize how they behave? Do they recognize when they hurt you? Do they feel remorse? Do they feel remorseful when you're crying in the corner, huddled up and curled, in a fetal position? Do they feel remorseful about that? So those are important signs to see in the person to know whether you could stay, because a lot of times it's very difficult for these people to change. And perhaps on the outside they'll say, oh, don't leave me, because they don't want to be left. These people are very insecure. That's one of their problems, is huge insecurity. So they don't want you to leave them, and they will beg you, they will do anything, they manipulate you, stay with me, stay with me. It's a very, very difficult process to get out from under a narcissistic relationship. It's not easy. And again, that's why it's so important to have support behind you.
Mm-hmm. So you've mentioned things like manipulation. How does one spot a narcissist? I think in our society, we've heard that terminology, but a lot of people don't even know what that means.
So a narcissist is someone that they really lack empathy. That would be the biggest sign to see in someone, that they have no empathy, no compassion for another. The life is all about them, right? The world revolves around them like they're the sun, right? They're shining and you are the planet circling the sun, right? So yeah, it's all about them. That's basically, and we have many examples going on right now in the country of narcissists.
Yes.
So I would just say, take a look around.
I remember at one point in my first marriage, I looked at my ex-husband and I said, I feel like you rely on me for your happiness. Like I am your sole source of whether you have a good day or whether you have a bad day. And don't put that on me anymore. I don't want to be your sole source of happiness. Would that be maybe an example of us being the planets around the sun, and we better not, do anything to tick them off or make them
right?
angry?
That's a really great example of that, for sure.
Okay.
For sure. They are very dependent. They're very insecure, and they do depend on you for everything.
Interesting. So now let's talk about the happy side of what you do. So I'm sure you've helped several, and I don't want to just say women, I'm sure men are also in these narcissistic relationships, but I'm sure you've had several clients that you've helped get out of these toxic relationships and kind of move on with their lives. Do you have some success stories that you can share? Maybe some light at the end of the tunnel for the person that's stuck in that really bad relationship, to say, there is light on the other side. There is happiness. There's abundance.
Yeah. So, and I have a story too of a woman who stayed, because in my mind, it's just as difficult to stay as it is to go. Mm-hmm. It's a very difficult process to change someone. And this client actually knew her husband was abusive and she wanted to get out, and she was probably at the end of her tether. And he got diagnosed with stage 4 throat cancer. So his cruelty level kind of upped a notch towards her because he was angry about his health. Mm-hmm. And so finally she said to him, I'm leaving you if you don't change. I'm not going to stay with you. I'm not going to help you through this. I'm done. And he stopped. He changed. He stopped. It wasn't overnight, right? But I mean, he became better. And she helped him through his cancer, using some holistic therapy as well. And today he's cancer free, and they have an amazing relationship. He's very respectful of her, and she's always loved him. And so that was really a great success story I had, and I was really happy to be supporting her and helping her through that. That was really a great story.
And that's beautiful, but I'm going to bet that that's not the norm. That a lot of us women, we think in our minds, well, we can fix them, we can change them, and if we do X, Y, Z, then they'll start to be nice to me. So right. I'm going to bet that that's not the norm, but it is a beautiful story.
Right, right. And so when women are ready to leave, a lot of my clients, I like to make sure that they have a plan. It's very important to know when you're going to go and what about your income. So you want to make sure, if you can, to increase your income, to put money away, save money before you leave. Another important part of that would be to make sure you have a safe place to move to, where you're going to live, have that worked out as well. Support from family and friends, critical to have that, critical to have the support. It's a very difficult time to change your life and get up and get out of a relationship. So support to me is really a fundamental part of this whole process.
So I'm going to say, I'm going to bet that a lot of the women or men listening that want to leave don't have a good support structure, because I know, at least in my own relationship, and I think you had also mentioned in yours as well, that, you know, the person in your life causing kind of this distress doesn't want you to have friends, doesn't want you to be a part, you know, of your family of origin, and they kind of ostracize you until you and the partner are the only ones left. So I love that as a coach, you can offer services to these people that really need you and say, let's make a plan together, and let's find a safe place together, and let's talk about how we kind of squirrel money away so that when you leave, you do have somewhere to go and something to do, and you can live on your own for a little bit. Can you talk to us a little bit about the coaching work that you do, and maybe how you help empower, let's say, you know, a woman or a man in this situation where maybe their partners are looking at their bank accounts and every dollar that they spend. How can they work with you in a way that does help them discreetly move out the door?
That's a great question. That's a great question. My program is a one-on-one program because of my background as a psychotherapist. I feel that I have the most success working one-on-one. And then if people continue on, I like to do a group program because I feel like we all learn from one another. It's very powerful to be in a group of other women and to hear other stories. So the initial program is a counseling one-on-one program where I help to empower women. And I think a lot of women, as women, they have a fear of failure. That's one of the things that women, they fear, like, well, I'm afraid to go, right? It could be family issues. I don't want to break up the family. I'm committed, right? Religion maybe perhaps comes into some of that, right? Also, women have self-esteem issues in these situations, so they have no self-confidence. I can't do it on my own. I can't be on my own. I can't make it without a man. Those are the kind of things that I hear from women all the time. So building up confidence, helping women embrace themselves, helping women to learn to love themselves. Foundation of basically all relationships and successful relationships is self-love. So I really take women on a journey through learning all of these qualities.
That's wonderful. I love that. Thank you for the work that you do. We appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you.
So many people out there that need it. I mean, I know when I got close to 30, like every single one of my girlfriends ended up getting divorced and moving on and having really toxic relationships the first time around. And then this next time we've all found the husbands of our dreams that treat us like princesses. And I have one good girlfriend that's having, a second baby and with this new husband, and it's like this whole fresh new start. So it's really a beautiful process. Will you talk a little bit about where our listeners and viewers can find you? I know you also have a giveaway for our listeners and viewers. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Sure, of course. I have a website, joannekingcoaching.com.
Okay.
And I have a lot of information on there. I also have, like you said, I have a giveaway, which is a Saving Grace clarity call. And that would be about probably a half an hour, 40-minute call with me to talk about issues that you're facing and perhaps some results to help you solve those problems.
Wonderful. And I think you also mentioned to me before the call, some people may not want to fill out a form on your website to get a hold of you. What was your email address in case they just want to send you an email discreetly?
Yeah, anyone is welcome to email me. And I love to hear from people about all their stories. And so anytime, just drop me a line, whether it's a success story or not, I'm interested. Joanne, JOANNE, at joannekingcoaching.com.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Joanne, for joining us today. This was a wonderful conversation, certainly very empowering. And I think it's a very important topic to discuss of, really evaluate the relationships that you have in your life and evaluate whether they're toxic or not. And I think the end of December, looking at a new year is always a really good opportunity to do that evaluation. And then if you find that there's some toxic relationships in your life that you need to leave, maybe drop Joanne a note, go find her on her website, do that quiz, the 5 Steps of Grace. There's probably some quizzes and some other fun things on her website too that you could kind of continue to identify whether or not that you're in a relationship that you need to leave. So anyway, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your time. Joanne is in Hawaii, so have fun out there on the ocean, playing in the waves.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here as your guest, and so I'm really grateful to have participated. Thank you.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.